Clock. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Yes, I think we're ready. So, hello and welcome to the launch of the Flow with Financial Friday series. Yay! Um, this has been several months in the making, and I still remember my first conversation with Carl at the top of the year, and I got excited then. But today we are joined obviously by Carl Brown, the State Executive Director of the DC Small Business Development Center, located on the campus of Howard University inside of the incredible School of Business. One of our series presenters is here for this particular series, Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy, owner of Kennedy and Associates and the co-owners of Creative Junk Food. I just love that name because I do like junk food. Candace Taylor and Nabi Bilal. They will be speaking with Carl about the exciting Sammy the Saver illustrative series. And also, unfortunately, today, Dean Wilbon will not be with us, but we're going to catch him on a future broadcast. So stay tuned. So, what is Flow all about and why was it created? Financial literacy, outreach, and wealth. Flow, otherwise known as Flow, is an initiative sponsored by the City Foundation, which seeks to inform, educate, and encourage underserved populations in the District of Columbia. With the continued fluctuations in the marketplace, initiatives like this are key in helping residents and businesses come out of this on the other side. No one is more dedicated in supporting initiatives such as Flow like my friend Carl Brown. He is a tireless champion of small business and financial literacy. Carl, talk to us a little bit about why this initiative is so important.
Today is a historic day. I've been talking about financial literacy for a long time. And let me tell you, when the pandemic first hit us in 2020, we the federal government and banks came out with the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, and the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, which are loans slash grants. And I had brought on my team, Lisa Anderson, CPA, and Beverly Winstead, one of the top tax attorneys in the state of Maryland. And they were helping us with our small business counseling. And both of them came back to me and said, "Hey, we have a problem here." And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" And they said, "Well, a lot of our businesses, our clients, are not qualifying for the PPP or the EIDL because they haven't paid their taxes. They're not in good stead with the government as far as being in compliance. They don't have a business bank account. They don't have any financial infrastructure. And so they're not qualifying for the PPP or the EIDL, and they're likely going to go out of business." And so we thought about it, we worked on a plan, and we came up with the financial literacy. We have to educate our small businesses and the community at large. So I came up with a plan to start with K through 8. And we have Creative Junk Food that's working on a fabulous product. And I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'm going to let them talk about it. But it's exciting. It's innovative, very creative, and it's going to encourage people to read it, look at it, be about it, touch it, feel it, everything. They're going to get as excited as I am about it. Then we have Dr. Kennedy working on high school and college with her program, and I'm not going to steal her thunder. And then my regular counselors are working with the small businesses, civic organizations, church organizations, fraternities, sororities, senior citizens. We're not leaving any stone unturned.
Right.
We're touching everybody. So we're going cradle to grave, okay? Cradle to grave, because financial literacy affects all of us.
That's
And
right.
so we want to make sure that If anything happens in the future, if there's anything like the pandemic that we're going through now happens again, or like in China, they're shut down again, if we have to shut down, we want our small businesses and we want our people in a better position. So I always say, if not at Howard, then where? If not now, then when?
Then
And
when?
so we're here today, and yes, we do represent Howard University. So we're taking the charge, we're taking the lead on financial literacy to make sure that our folks are empowered and that they can make good, strong decisions on their financial health, and that we're here to help them. Because to change the things that we're talking about doing, which is overspending, not putting the budget, not saving, not doing those things, not paying your taxes, all those things that hurt us, it is behavior. And so we need to change that behavior. And that's why we're all working together. And we have a lot of friends working with us in other organizations that will, along this journey, will join us at a later date. But there are a lot of people working together to have one message, that financial literacy is the way to prosperity. And that's where we want to be. And we don't want to leave anyone in our community by the wayside or the roadside.
Right.
We want everybody. I don't care if they live in the poorest neighborhood in Southeast or they live in Potomac, Maryland. It doesn't matter. We want them to be educated on financial literacy because we want them to have a better tomorrow, and their families to have a better tomorrow. So this is why I'm saying it's historic. We're moving this thing forward, and we're going to be walking in lockstep with a lot of other people along the journey. It takes one step at a time. Like, how do you eat an elephant?
Hmm.
One bite at a time. It's one step at a time, and it's one project at a time. And so I thank all of the people who are looking. I thank my team, Creative Junk Food, Dr. Kennedy, April, Stacy, everybody that
AC,
is
yes.
working on this thing, because we're working to make our future better for everybody.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much, Carl. And I can tell you from a recipient of the services from the DCSBDC Center located on the campus of Howard University, I am a recipient of that. Just having conversations with Carl or Carolina Gomez, who is my mentor. She's a food business mentor. As I'm in the process of launching another business, which Carl knows a lot about. And he just, in conversation, just told me about the Serve Safe class certification that I could take through Howard University, and it's at such a discounted rate. And so whereas I could be spending $250 somewhere else at Howard University SBDC, I'm spending $60. And so sometimes the impediment for many of these businesses to be able to get started is that they don't have that startup capital. So programs like this, SBDC, Flow, it all really helps. And the creative junk food and what Dr. Kennedy is doing is so important because they're focused on the K through 8 and on the high school. The adults, obviously, it's important. But as you mentioned earlier, Carl, we talked about behavior. If we can start early, then hopefully some of these generational type of behaviors, we can kind of rectify some of those as we move forward. So we mentioned Dr. Kennedy. Now let's meet one of the Flow Series presenters, Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy, owner of Silver Kennedy and Associates. So Dr. Tisa, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, April and Carl. I'm really excited to be a part of this project and also really excited that it's at Howard University, the real HU, as we all know.
Yes.
You know?
I didn't go there, but I claim it. Yes.
Yes, yes. So, as you mentioned, I'm the founder of Silver Kennedy and Associates, is a higher education research and consulting firm based in Prince George's County, Maryland. And financial literacy has actually been the focus of much of my work, especially financial education and wellness, where college and career students are concerned because they have unique financial challenges. And unfortunately, sometimes those challenges lead them to not being able to complete. And for those who had to borrow to pay for that college or career school education, when they leave without a credential, it just places them in a situation that's much more financially difficult. And one thing that I'm very passionate about is helping people make informed decisions about what kind of program to pursue and how to pay for it.
Right. That's awesome. So now you're going to be presenting two workshops during this series. And who knows, maybe we'll tap you for more, your wealth of knowledge. One is borrowing while black, and I love that topic. If you've ever gone into a bank, I bought a house a year ago. I didn't have any issues, but I know that they're, borrowing while black, that's a real thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
understanding public service loan forgiveness, the PSLF program. Can you give us an overview of what you'll be covering in these sessions? And Dr. Tisa, talk specifically about the time constraints for the PSLF program. I know that there are many who would love to pay off their student loans, i.e., myself included.
Absolutely. Well, I've actually put together a few slides to give you all a snapshot of the Black borrowing experience,
Great.
as well as some of the key points to remember about public service loan forgiveness. And it's so important to get into the pipeline early for that program because the temporary expanded version of the rules is set to expire on October 31st. So just let me know if you can see my screen.
We can.
Okay, wonderful. Just to give you all the high level view of student loan debt as it is in the headlines, because many people are calling for cancellation. Americans collectively owe more than $1.7 trillion in student loans. The vast majority of that student loan debt has been issued by the federal government, and that's why most of the calls are directed toward the federal government to do something about it and to cancel student loan debt. And that's the first question people usually ask me: when's President Biden going to cancel student loans? And I tell them, policy is the language that I listen to. So I can't make any predictions. I'm just waiting to see what happens. But the number that has been floated out there is $10,000 per borrower. And from the image on the right side, you can see that at $10,000 canceled per borrower, that would eliminate debt totally for 15 million people out of the 45 million people in this country that have student loan debt. So cancellation can help, even at a number like $10,000. But of course, we see the benefit would increase as that dollar value increases as well. In terms of relief, the Biden administration has enacted several programs, and much of the relief has been targeted to certain populations, such as those who have been deemed totally and permanently disabled, borrowers who might have been defrauded by their schools and the schools are now closed. And there's also been a temporary halt on taxation of any federal student loan debt that is canceled. So for those of us who are hoping for cancellation, we'll be happy to know that there won't be a tax bill on it if it happens within the next few years. The limited public service waiver is a public service loan forgiveness waiver is a short-term program that is open to people who work in public service. That could be for government agencies from the federal, state, local, or even tribal level. And for certain types of nonprofit organizations to have them get the remaining balance of their debt forgiven after they've worked and made payments for 120 months. So we're talking about a minimum 10-year commitment here. That waiver is set to expire on October 31st, 2022. And before I give the specifics of the waiver, I just wanted to talk a bit more about borrowing while Black and why it's so important for Black borrowers to take advantage of programs like this and anything else that can provide repayment assistance for those student loans. This excerpt here is from a Wall Street Journal article that was actually posted last summer. And the quote that I chose to pull here is that Black students were told that college was a path to wealth and prosperity. Instead, student loans have become a millstone around the neck of an entire generation. And that quote just it's vivid imagery in my mind, and it's confirmed for me each time I meet with someone for a one-on-one session and we look at that debt and they talk about the freedom that they feel they don't have, the options that they wish they had, as well as how much this current pause in payments that we've been in since March of 2020 has freed up so much money for them to do other things, to catch up with other bills, and to have options like saving for a home or purchasing another car. So I can really just attest to the fact that this is true. People have been told for a long time, you have to go to college. That is your ticket, to a wealthy life for the middle class. And unfortunately, since the cost of higher education has risen so much, that return on investment isn't quite always as high as we expect it to be. In particular, and I'm just sharing some very general outcomes with you about the Black borrowing experience, Black borrowers Black students, tend to borrow more often, borrow in larger amounts overall, graduate less often, earn less upon graduation, and also default more often.
Yeah.
My book, Borrowing While Black, gets into the specifics of all of those facts, but I want to take a moment just to say, when you look at a stat like graduate less often, I want to be very clear that this is not an issue of talent or intelligence. Oftentimes, it's an issue of lack of finances or other barriers that lead to students withdrawing before they finish, but it is not due to any kind of lack of ability. So for Black borrowers, I just want to share a few strategies to increase your ROI on higher education. The first one is to exercise your right to choose a repayment plan. Next is to stay in touch with your servicer. But the one in bold there is to maximize your use of loan forgiveness and or cancellation benefits. Those benefits can come from the federal government, such as programs like public service loan forgiveness. Also, state government agencies have programs available. If you're in Maryland, you want to visit the Maryland Higher Education Commission. If you're in DC, you want to visit OSSE, the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. And you can also ask your employer if there have been any benefits that are specifically designated for student loan borrowers. And just to highlight the waiver and why it's so important for people to get those applications in before October 31st. The original rules of public service loan forgiveness have 5 requirements, and here's the list. You have to make 120 monthly payments, so it's a minimum of a 10-year commitment. Those payments can only be made on direct loans. The third requirement is that you have to be enrolled in a qualifying repayment plan. The fourth requirement is that during all of that time, the 120 months, you have to have been working full-time for a qualifying employer. The fifth and final requirement, and this is one that tripped up a lot of people, you still have to be working in qualifying employment at the time that you apply for and receive forgiveness. So for people that heard about this program after they had made the payments, after they had the work experience, they couldn't get through because they had changed careers or retired. Now, if you look at the far right side, you'll see the current requirements for public service loan forgiveness under the limited waiver. There are only 2 requirements left at this time. The first one is that you have to have 120 periods of repayment. That's a big language shift. What's happening is the Department of Education is not just looking at your payments, the amounts, whether the payments were on time. They're looking at the months that your loans were in a repayment status. Also, some forbearances and even some deferments might count. So it's going to be easier for people to potentially get to that magic number of 120. The only other requirement remaining is that during that 120 periods of repayment, the borrower had to be working for a qualifying employer. So for people who have retired, who have maybe dropped from full-time to part-time or shifted to a for-profit space, it's all right. They can still apply, and I encourage them to apply through studentaid.gov so that they can get the maximum amount of credit for those past periods of repayment and their service to the public. Last thing I'd like to reinforce is that the limited waiver for right now is temporary and is set to expire on October 31st of 2022. As for a few resources before I close, I just wanted to mention my book, Borrowing While Black, is available on Amazon.com as well as my website, tisasilver.com. And if you are in need of any one-on-one counseling about your student loans, selecting a repayment strategy, or applying for public service loan forgiveness, I encourage you, please reach out through the DCSBDC Lead Center at the Real HU, Howard University, and I would be happy to meet with you and help you strategize around repaying those loans and maximizing those benefits.
Dr. Tisa, wow. I really would love to hear the rest of this session. And so people can look forward to hearing the rest of this expertly planned session that she has put together. This information is critical for removing the millstone, as was spoken in that quote, from around generations of young people. I know for myself going through school, and probably some of you that are on here as well, that I also had to cover living expenses. Like if you needed a new tire, that also was utilized from loan, dollars as well too. And so sometimes you have to just pull it together however you can, but then you get out of school and now you realize you have a mountain of debt. So Dr. Tisa, thank you. And I would like for you to mention one more time the title of your book and where people can purchase.
Sure, the book is Borrowing While Black, and I always keep a copy handy.
Great.
But it's available on Amazon as well as my website, tisasilver.com.
Awesome. I'm going to actually get my copy from Amazon and not ask her for a bootleg copy. After this, I'm going to pay for it. Absolutely. So we're definitely looking forward to your sessions. Okay. Now I'd like to turn it over to Carl Brown, who will speak with the owners, the co-owners of Creative Junk Food. But before I do, let me give you a short description of Sammy Saver. Sammy Saver is a 13-year-old African-American boy who is very, I added another very in there, financially literate. In his adventures, he helps people by teaching them about financial literacy principles in order to help them avoid making costly mistakes with their money. I'm excited about this. It's just such a cool concept. Carl, take it away.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I wanted to reach out to kids in K through 8, um, with a comic book or a animated series, so that we can educate them on how to save money, how to prepare for the future, and change that behavior of going out and getting the latest Jordans and all that other stuff. Because guess what? You're gonna wear those shoes out, and then you won't have any money for tomorrow.
Right.
And so Creative Junk Food, came to us through Stacy. She introduced me to them. I saw their work. I fell in love with it. I met them. We talked, and we, started talking about the concept, and they took it from there. So I don't want to steal their thunder. I want them to show you what we got going on.
Yes.
So Navi and Candace, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again, Carl. It's been quite a journey with Sammy Saver, and uh, just really want to also again just reiterate our thank yous to Carl and Stacy for even thinking of us for this, and then thinking of the project as it stands. Um, when it was brought to us, Carl pretty much kind of laid out his vision for it. The character of Sammy Saver being a financially literate young man who can teach other children in that K through 8 space through his adventures, like how to think about financial literacy, saving, budgeting, spending, things of that nature. And so he pretty much gave us the keys to the car and said, let's make it digestible, let's make it fun. So the first thing we thought about was saving as a superpower. That
Mm.
that's an amazing capabilities, and so Sammy saving is his superpower, and he's got a couple friends that he goes on this journey with that he teaches lessons to, and vice versa teach him lessons that allow him to increase his capability. And uh, we are planning to do a comic book where Sammy. I shouldn't worry about giving so much away. I'll just tell you.
Yes,
So,
tell us.
so there's the concept of generational curses that we all know exist,
Mm.
and in Sammy's world, he encounters these characters called the spendthrifts, and the spendthrifts are kind of like the vapors. Everybody can get them at certain points in time. You see something really shiny, and you overlook the thing that's more economical for you, and you try and go for that thing. And so when that happens, Sammy senses a person getting a case of the spendthrifts, and so he has to interject and step in and try and help them see things from another light. Because if you don't, if you get too many situations with the spendthrifts, what you'll end up with is a generational curse, and that's a whole lot harder to get rid of. And so that's one of Sammy's main things. And I'm going to share my screen to give you all some behind the scenes look at the development of Sammy Saver.
Man, I'm so excited. This is my
Yeah,
first time seeing it. So
yeah, we're just going to tease them, because I'm
just a little
telling you,
bit.
Woo! When I came to the last page, I was like, "Oh my God, I need more. I need more."
Right.
So before I
So
show you some of the finished pages, it's very important with what we do. There's a lot of development involved with anything, especially within the creative field. So in addition to the write up, we had to think about what Sammy would look like, and so this is where he ended up looking. This is how he ended up looking, and so this is Sammy, our main character. This is the character sketch, the main reference for Sammy, and then he's got his friend Carl, as we call him, Cash Money Carl, and I definitely have to say Carl was very innovative in that name. And Cash Money Carl is an important character because he's the friend. Cash Money Carl, his family is from New Money, so his family recently got rich, and he's enjoying all the fruits of his parents' labor. But he's most susceptible to the spendthrifts. He's the kind of kid who gets all the latest shoes. He buys clothes and food for all his friends. He likes to show off. He likes to impress people, and oftentimes Sammy has to step in and reel Carl back in so that Carl can kind of learn some lessons about saving and budgeting and things of that nature. And then we've got Katrina, who's also on the team, and so she's a little bit more savvy. Where she started a YouTube channel where she offers fashion advice, and she's got people kind of following her, and she's a little bit smarter with her money, but still at times, she encounters things where she needs Sammy's help as well too, and vice versa. She also sometimes provides context to things for Sammy. And then going back, we've got the spendthrift. So this is that character that engulfs you. You don't see him coming before you know it. He
Yep.
just embodies you, and so Sammy does battle with this character through logic, essentially making people think about what you're doing, think about how you're spending, think about better alternatives,
Mm.
and then this is kind of Sammy's superhero persona when he gets into the Sammy Saver mode, when he goes into that world, So again, his one of his taglines is I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's saving is always a great idea, and so he operates off of that method of going with the great idea and being smart. And we have a few illustrated pages too to show you. So we've gotten into the illustrations on the comic side. So this is our first story here, where
Wow.
Sammy and his friends are going to be trying to save up money to go to a concert, and in order to do that, Sammy has got to invest. His father gives him a small investment to start off with, and Sammy's got to make that money, triple in order to get what he wants out of it. And so he sets to work doing that. But as he's doing it, he meets up with his friend Katrina. She's also excited about it. She's already kind of got her plan. She does her fashion thing, so they're going to get together and they're going to use that investment to make it good for all of them, and essentially go into business together for this particular thing. And then we've got Carl, who, as we said before, Carl's family, they got it like that, but at the same time, he's susceptible to overspending, and he's going to find out soon that you can go broke pretty easily when you're not paying attention to your pockets and your bank account.
and I tell you, when I read it, I was like,
This is
I,
good
I
stuff.
I I was like, oh my God, I need more. I need more. You're gonna be like that too. They're trying to save up to go to a Queen Bee concert. So
Right, yeah, and obviously Queen Bee, reference to Beyonce, but just a play on words with that.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so this is a first look at Sammy Saver, and we're also in addition to the comic book, we're developing a couple more stories that'll be meant for online consumption, and it's going to be really good. I mean, it's Sammy is every day he comes more and more to life. Speaking with Carl about this, I mean, financial literacy is just important to start with at a young age. I personally remember starting uh, uh, business ventures as a young child, and then kind of getting a sense of how money moves. And then fast forward to what Candace and I do. There's still aspects of financial literacy that we had to have, within our own business that we can relate to as we start to see what Sammy and his friends are learning.
Mm,
And see, so that's why it's important to start at the K through 8 and then all the way up,
right.
cradle to grave, because we miss the boat a lot of times. And like what we see in at the SBDC, folks come in looking for money, they come in looking for loans or grants, and they don't qualify because they're not in good financial stead with the government. The government's not going to lend you money or give you money in a grant form if you're not in compliance with their rules and regulations. And the bank is not going to lend you money if you don't have a relationship with them, number one. Number two, that you have like one account and you're running your household expenses and your business through it. They're not going to lend you money on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why we think it's so important to teach financial literacy. We're all a part of it. We all benefit from it. Developing a budget, pay your bills on time, be vigilant about your credit rating and your credit score. I mean, just as much as people are like you see on YouTube all day, or not YouTube, but maybe these TikTok reels. You see a guy puts his phone down and his girlfriend gets the phone, or she puts her phone down and he gets the phone, and they're looking for, oh, are they cheating on me and all that. Be that vigilant about your credit score. If you that vigilant about somebody's phone, be that vigilant about your credit score and your credit history, and that will help you get the things that you want later on in life.
Right.
But we got to start somewhere, and this is why we're starting today. So that's why I say it's historic.
Absolutely. So do you guys have anything else that I mean, that was excellent, Nabi and Candace. That is, and I know being a creative, I know how much hard work that takes and how many hours and how
Yeah.
many iterations. So that was good to really just see, where you started from and where we are now. I think it's incredible. So can you give us just a tentative timeline on when we can expect
Mhm.
this to hit?
So at the present moment, we're expecting to have everything completed and ready to roll by mid to the end of August. Um, it's quite a bit of development that's still taking place in terms of getting the other stories done, finishing up the illustrations for this, and then kind of laying in the lettering as well, and then additional formatting.
Hmm.
And I would say though, I feel like we're right on schedule. I feel like things are moving pretty smoothly. Like Sammy's alive, on our side. So he's, the story's kind of feeding to us. But I would say around the end of August for sure, Sammy Savers should be up and about, and in schools and classrooms everywhere.
Yep,
Awesome.
yep. Because
Awesome.
school starts in September, so
Right.
Yeah,
we'll be ready for them.
and
It's awesome.
And then also just in case anyone was curious about creative junk food, we're based here in DC in Ward 8. We've been operating since 2010. We started with music videos, animated music videos, and around 2017, the focus shifted to more of a variety, so animation and video, branding and design, and then murals and art installation. And this project was pretty much right up our alley, with both Candace and I having both done children's content uh,
Mm.
prior to this. So
Hmm.
again, I'm just very thankful for Carl and Stacy and the whole program, the whole Flow program. I think it's great. I mean, I'm more excited for children to get this in their hands and for what that does for families and future generations.
That's right. I think it's incredible. Can you tell us your website address, how people can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You could visit us at creativejunkfood.com, and then as well on social media platforms at Creative Junk Food.
Great. I've been to your website, and it's a great. It's just a wonderful creative space, and just great to see what you and Candace are doing for the community and for future generations. I think we really have no idea the impact, that this is going to make 10, 15, 20, 50 years down the line. So thank you all. This is wonderful. We appreciate Stacy putting you all in touch with Carl, and just a wonderful connection. Um, well, this has been great hearing about this resource, this flow resource being brought to you by the DCSBDC Center located on the campus of Howard University inside the School of Business. We thank you so much for joining us. Again, we want to say thank you to Stacy and her team for all the hard work today. Today was just a preview of what you're going to hear from Creative Junk Food and from Dr. Tisa. And I know you guys are looking forward to more at the beginning of August. We have much more to come from our DCSBDC counselors like Dwayne Ellis, who will be presenting Mind Your Money and Successful Retirement Strategies for Business Owners, as well as 3 critical financial statements every business owner needs to know, which will be presented by Lysandra Everett. I've got my LLC, now what? She's going to be presenting that as well. And record keeping, which is going to be presented by Stephanie. We will also have a special edition session with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So stay tuned for updates and registration details. A special edition session with the Securities and Exchange Commission, DCSBDC.org, on all of our social media sites. So our registration is going to be coming out shortly. So again, it's DCSBDC.org, which is or on all of the social media sites. And so if there's nothing else, we give you back the rest of your day, and we thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.